In our Bible text today, we find Jesus and his disciples moving from town to village to village. He's preaching the good news of the kingdom of God, wanting people to put into practice the words that he's saying. And people are following him. The crowds are going big, bigger than people could expect. Jesus is adamant. He continues to teach. He teaches in riddles and parables, and sometimes people understand it, other times people don't. Nevertheless, he's so captivating. He's so awe-inspiring. He is so inspiring that people began to follow him. And as the crowds began to follow, there's a report that his mom and his brothers show up to see him outside. Jesus is so focused on preaching the good news of the kingdom of God and how people can put into practice what he's teaching, that not even his parent, his mom and his brother, can pull him away from what he's doing. Every day, the crowd grows. And so one day, perhaps a little exhausting from overexerting himself and teaching and explaining his parables to the people, doing healing and having people push in to ask him questions. One day, he pulls his disciples aside and decides to go onto the other side of the Lake of Galilee, the Sea of Galilee, the place where many of his disciples were expert fishermen. They knew this place. They knew the sea, and they were comfortable. And so, following Jesus' request, they got the boat, they got into the boat, and they set sail. No sooner than they began to sail across this 13-mile lake, Jesus falls asleep. Now, I can imagine that the disciples are probably minding their own business. Maybe they're talking, maybe they're engaged about what the parable meant that Jesus told on the other side of the shore, why Jesus wouldn't come out and talk to his mom or his brothers, what's going to happen once they get to the new side of the shore. Is it going to be much the same? Are there going to be more people there pressing in on Jesus, demanding of his time and their time? Before they could answer any of those questions, it happened. The once calm sea was transformed into a squall. The clear sky became dark, overcast with angry clouds. The winds began to blow and the calm sea began to get choppy, and whitecaps and waves began to toss the boat back and forward. These are expert fishermen. They've been in this situation before, but this time, it was different. The waters were so violent that the waters began to flood into the boat. And it was at that moment that panic set in. They feared for their lives. And all the while, Jesus is still asleep. And so they shake him as hard as they can. Master, 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 don't you care about us? Don't you care that we are about to die? And I can imagine Jesus assessing the situation, rising up, and then the Bible tells us that he calmly speaks to the wind and to the waves. And just as fast as the storm started, it stopped. The winds died down. The sea began to get calm again. And he looked at them and said, "Where's your faith?" And so they puzzled to each other, who is this guy? Yeah, we know that he can give parables. We've even seen him do some magic tricks, some things that only God could do, but we've never ever seen anything like this. He talks to the water and he talks to the wind and they obey him. Jesus is asleep in the midst of a storm. I don't know about you, but there are some troubling parts of this text and there are some comforting parts of the text. The troubling parts of the text are what sticks out to me first. Knowing that if I were in the boat, this is what I would feel. I'm in danger. I'm about to drown out in the middle of a lake. And it doesn't seem that Jesus is that interested in what's going on in my life. Maybe you have had that same experience. Maybe you're experiencing something now where you're struggling and for the life of you, you can't figure out why God is silent. Where is God in the midst of this storm? And perhaps, like the disciples, you shake your fist at heaven and yell at God, "Don't you care about me? I'm about to die. Come see about me." Does seem kind of strange to think that in the beginning, it's Jesus's idea in the very first place to get in the boat to go across the lake. What was he thinking? Was he only thinking about himself because he was tired and rightfully so? But what about the disciples? Are there not times where you felt in your life that maybe you've gotten the short end of the stick from a faith perspective or from a physical perspective? Maybe you're waiting on something that you've been praying for a long time, and it's like crickets. Nothing happens. There's a silent sound. Perhaps you've prayed in earnest and you've got people praying for you, prayer warriors, and your prayers seem to be like a rubber ball. It bounces off the floor and it bounces off the ceiling back to the floor, never seeming to reach heaven's gate. Well, friends, here's the comforting part. If that's you, seems to me that you, and myself included, are in good company. You see, Jesus is in the boat. Is Jesus in your boat? Is Jesus asleep in your boat? The fact that Jesus tells them to go across the lake suggests to me that he knows and that he's in control, and that for whatever reason, the disciples must go through the lake, must go through the choppiness and the disorder of chaos, where the sunny skies turn dark and gray, where angry clouds show up suddenly, and tranquil water and still waters that run deep begin to toss and turn our lives. I take good hope in knowing that Jesus is still in the boat. And so, friends, like you, I've shaken my fist at God before saying, "Don't you care about me?" And all along, I focused on the wrong thing. It's so easy to get focused and get distracted by the storms and forget that Jesus is in the boat. If Jesus is in the boat and the boat's going through a storm, there's probably, if I'm able to step back and look and get out of my triggered fear, I could probably come to a fateful conclusion that there's probably a good chance if I'm in the presence of Jesus and if Jesus is in my presence, that I'm going to be okay. I might get a little wet. I might get a little waterlogged. but the one who created the sky and the sea, the one who was with creation when the earth was formless and void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, but the Spirit of God hovered above the waters. And God, in that creation story, said, "Let there be light." Perhaps this is a recreation story of our faith. I know it is with me when I get down, when I get distracted, when I fret, or like the disciples, I get exhausted. I get tired, and I need a little rest. Know that in your most difficult days, when the storm clouds rage, Jesus is the one who's in your boat. Maybe he's asleep, but he's still in your boat. And I would rather have a sleeping Jesus in my boat than to be on a large cruise ship out in the middle of the ocean with all the amenities, particularly when the sea gets rough. What about you, friends? I've struggled with where my faith is on time. And I'm glad to know that even when I struggle, Jesus is still in my boat. And you don't have to be a fisherman to know this. You don't have to own a literal boat. The boat can be your life. And if Jesus is anywhere in your life, maybe you've grown away from Jesus. Maybe at one time you were really close to Jesus, but today you feel like he's miles away. Perhaps that's what it feels like for Jesus to be asleep, because he's never far from us. Will you call out to Jesus? Will you trust Jesus when things get out of hand? When your boat begins to shake, when it feels like you're ready to sink and drown, can you call out to the one who has the ability to speak peace in your life, to say, winds calm down, waves stop? Those who have ears, let them hear.